Good evening. The Chris, Wanda, and Liam show. Chris Kim from sunny Saudi Arabia at 1 in the morning. We'll put on the Russian-South Korea game after I do this. This is the post game, second game for Group A, and the Algerian-Belgium game. Apologize for doing this a little later because after the Mexico-Brazil game, I actually watched CNN's Hard Choices forum with Hillary Clinton and Christina Amanpour. So after we do football, we're going to do politics next. And Christina Amanpour wants Hillary Clinton to be the first woman president. So, having said that, I will leave judgment just to let you know I'm a Jack Kemp 1980 supply side economics guru. So, let's talk about Mexico, Brazil. Half and half what I talked about in prior shows. I didn't think Brazil was that good. I actually predicted Mexico to win. It was a 0-0 draw. Pretty much the Mexican keeper kept them in the game, made some huge saves. Doesn't have the greatest hands in the world, but has very good reflexes. Made some great reflex saves. But that kind of was a counterbalance to Mexico's strategy of shooting whenever they got the chance on Caesar, the Brazilian goalie, but making sure they missed each time. One thing, just a little history on myself. I played up through college in some sports. I played at one time American football, soccer, basketball, tennis, baseball. Okay, I now play for fun tennis, squash, and racquetball, and I used to play soccer or football with my son's friends, who actually are really good out here in Saudi, but took a fall and twisted my knee, and my wife basically said I should retire. Besides, they've gotten so good that I'm no longer picked unless they really need a guy. But I was the typical, what I would call, the line from Brooks, the coach of the United States 1980 hockey team. I didn't have enough talent to win with talent alone. So what I always had to do is be in the best physical shape of my life, and I would have to outwork the other players, and I would have to outthink the other players. So I learned how you use angles and how you have to use the talent of what you have to strategically and tactically win your game. Okay, I'm not a big believer in some coaches who just thought, focus, it always works this way. We see that doesn't work. It works sometimes if you have the right talent for it. But when you try and put your system into the talent that doesn't match it, it usually fails. And I will save that for another episode of the Chris, Wanda, and Liam show. But having said that, the one thing I was taught playing soccer or football is when you shoot from that far out, unless you have a golden foot, and there are only like 10 people in the world at any given time that have golden feet, make sure you put the ball on net. Good pace, but it doesn't have to be to blow out the back of the net. You have to force the goalie to make the save. Be smart on your shooting, make it challenging, but every time you go for broke, you're probably going to miss. The other thing that I also see is nobody teaches fundamentals of shooting. You have to get over the ball. If not, you lean back, the ball goes up. Mexico had one shot, according to the announcers. I thought they had two, because I think Caesar had to go up and tap one over the bar, but it was probably high anyway. They had, through the whole game, one shot on goal. They had lots of shots. They had one shot on goal that needed to be saved, and that was in injury time of the second half. That was horrible. So my prediction that Mexico would beat Brazil was predicated on the fact that they would have brains enough to at least try and get some shots on goal. I agree, you've got to test Caesar, but you test him. Shooting it over, shooting it wide, doesn't test him. And then what happens is what people forget is when it goes out of bounds, you've lost all momentum. It's their ball, it's a goal kick, and they're either going to start bringing it up on you or the goalie's going to kick it 60, 70, 80 meters down the pitch, and then you've got to win the header and bring it down again. You have to put the shot on net. And especially with what they teach goaltenders today, former goalie. Nobody's taught to catch the ball. They're all taught to punch it. And I say that because the reason why you want to make sure it's on net is you're going to get a rebound. You will get a rebound. He's not going to catch it. You crash the net. Sometimes you'll get it, sometimes you won't. But by shooting it over the net, then you have 0% of scoring. Making the goalie make the save gives you a chance to put the ball in the net. And in a 0-0 game, one goal wins it all, correct? So, Mexico played pretty stupidly that way. Almost gave the game up. And, Brazil had every chance in the world to win, 0-0, though. It was a draw. Now, the other thing the announcers I found very funny was sat there and said, okay, Mexico and Brazil are preparing to go through. They both have 4 points. If there is a winner of the Croatia-Cameroon game, one of those teams will have 3 points. And that team will be playing either Brazil or Mexico. And if they can win that game, they go through. So I don't think we should be coronating either team just yet. So overall, the game was exciting, but not due to good play. A lot of rough, dirty fouls, and even a couple. I would say some of the dirtier fouls may have been smart. Thiago Silva's foul on Javier Chicharito Hernandez. He had to take one for the team. Hernandez got good moves. He gets the ball right at the top of the penalty area. One move he could have been around Silva. Silva's a big guy. He's quick, but he's not as quick as Hernandez. He had to take it because there was a huge gap. Again, very poor defense on Brazil. And right now, Silva's kind of anchoring that defense of Marcelo on one side, Dirty Danny Alves on the other side, and David Luiz in the middle, who I wasn't sure where he was. I like Silva. I think he's done a pretty exceptional job working with the Wild bunch there on his defensive line. I will say something. I for the last 2 years, not as much this year, but last year, the Chris Wanda and Liam show watched a lot of the Paris League. Paris Saint-Germain, where he's played for the last couple years. My worry about him is he's looking, something's not right with him. It's like he's lost some weight, probably playing a lot of football, that could be it, but he's usually a little more, not fat, but a little more husky in the shoulder, a little more husky in the chest, and a little more physical ball player, so I'm a little concerned about his health. Just something I noticed. But, other than him, Fred, again, pretty nothing performance. Again, their offense right now is, even though I believe they lined him up at left wing, is young Neymar. Neymar's coming back, playing as a quarterback type, a lot of what Messi does for Barcelona. And he's the only one who seems to be able to create something and do a simple push-through pass where you might score. Nobody else in that midfield's been able to really do that. Plus, Fred was a no-show. His substitute, I don't remember his name. I think he was offsides on the one that he had the shot, but barring the call, it was a nice pass by Neymar. All he had to do was handle it, get control, and shoot. Instead, he just shot wildly. They did not have a lot of good connections. A lot of what they got were on corners or set plays. So other than Neymar playing quarterback, and he's being physically, teams are playing him hard. They want to beat him up. They want to slow him down. Without him, Brazil didn't show a lot. And right now, it depends on the other team. And with Brazil having a game, if Cameroon, again, I've heard people say they were an embarrassment in the Mexico game. Well, they have a chance to make up for it against Croatia. If they can win it, and they can take Brazil out, they go through. So, Group A, it probably will be Brazil-Mexico, but I wouldn't be celebrating that right now. Okay, second game. Algeria, Belgium. Belgium basically faced a team that packed 10 people back. They basically said, try and beat us. We're just going to play everybody in the second half of the field. We're going to counter when we can, but try and beat us. And Belgium, it took them a while. They did not play well, but they did what they had to do, and they got the win, even though they were behind. And this is where, when I talk about coaching, how the difference in coaching of a player. I've watched a lot of Manchester United this past year with Fellaini playing for David the Moyes. And he didn't play a lot. He was hurt. He had a bad hand. He had this. When he played, he never looked in sync in that team. He scored 0 goals. I believe it was in the second to last game that he actually had an offensive assist. In one game, he was an offensive threat. That's using talent properly. They were not able to beat Algeria when people stack back. Again, how do you attack defenses? You can attack between, you can attack around, or you can attack over. When they stack everybody back plus the goalie, you got to go over the top. And Fellaini, very tall gentleman, coach made a nice call, bringing him in to get the tying goal, and then Belgium, played with Algeria trying to counter, played very smart, countered very quickly. Hazard, very good with the ball, very good passing in the open field, and they get the win. So Belgium, again, I'm sure they wanted a stronger performance, but Algeria, for all the United States people who were watching this, who remember them last year, or World Cup people who watched Algeria play England and play Slovenia and play the United States, they play everybody the same way. They stack back and they play kick and run. And they're athletic and they're quick. Their conditioning's poor, but again, they're playing you almost from the get-go to get a 0-0 draw, or maybe if they can beat you 1-0. And that's a very hard team to play. So that's a simple version. I thought the penalty kick, actually people said, the goalie from Atletico Madrid for Belgium, Courtois or whatever his name is, he had no chance on that penalty. Well, if he guessed right, he would. It was a terrible penalty kick. He just went the wrong way. And usually when you play hot dog teams, they usually chip, and they usually chip to the right. As a goalie, that's what you got to play. Because blasting it the other way, you actually have to know what you're doing. So he should have stopped that kick. Next games I will turn on and catch the Russian-South Korean game. Big game. I don't know any of the Russian players' names. I do remember watching them in the Euro 2 years ago. And that team was Jekyll and Hyde. The first game against the Czech Republic, they played a wide open game. I think they won 4-2. They looked unstoppable. They played the next game against Poland. Now, the Euro 2 years ago, I believe, split between Ukraine and Poland. There was violence during that game before going into the stadium because it was on May Day, a Russian holiday, and what we're seeing in the Ukraine now was happening back then. I don't know what happened, but Russia played Poland to a 1-1 draw. They had the lead, and then they just decided not to play. And actually, Poland has a good team, has one of the best strikers in the world, has some solid players, so that's nothing to be ashamed of. But Russia should have won that game. And then they come out and play a totally lackluster game against the Greek team and lose. They don't go through to the next round. So I don't know which team shows up. When they're on, they can be as good as anybody. They could win this thing, okay? But you have to play consistently. So this is going to be an interesting game. South Korea plays you to the bone. Those teams, again, not the most talented, but they'll play you tough. So I'll turn that on and see. Tomorrow the big game is Spain. I believe Spain is playing, I just heard this, obviously they have to win this game. Who are they playing? I just blanked out, but they're playing a team who also lost. Bottom line, I'm not a fan of them. I do not predict they're going to win. I've said that from the start. But in response to some of the analysis I hear, and mind you, most analysts have no clue what they're talking about. They say one-line statements and think they have wisdom. And the reason why I bring this up is I've heard somebody talk about that Spain, their offense, they don't play football. They lost to the Netherlands because the Netherlands played football and Spain doesn't because of all their passing. Spain won a World Cup. That is not a fluke. They won back-to-back Euros. That is not a fluke. And they did it with the tactics that the Boost teaches. You see a lot of it with Barcelona. It worked when you have a quick team. It works when your defense is solid. Okay? This is what I mean. Tactics matching the team. I'm not a fan of those tactics. I sometimes think that when those tactics don't work, I look for teams to have a plan B. That's why I'm not a big fan of Pep Guardiola, who's taken a superpower Bayern Munich team and turned them into Barcelona too, and they got their butt kicked in Champions League. So I'm not a fan of the tactics, but with the right personnel, they worked. Okay? It's just the Spanish team, Carlos Puyo, David Villa, Xavi and Iniesta, and Busquets. They're half a step slower. You have to adjust, or you have to fill in. And Iniesta's a magician with the ball. So's Xavi Hernandez in his day. Xavi Alonso was probably one of the most creative, what I would call defensive midfielder. They've had their day. So it's not the tactics. The problem, it's not the tactics that the tactics are a failure. Excuse me. It's that the tactics no longer match this team. They have to come up with a plan B. They have to be a little more creative on going forward and maybe look to use Diego Costa, who is a big, strong, and quick striker. You got to play a little run and gun. David Silva is a master at that. Pick up the pace. If they do it and in their game, I think they'll win. It's just, will DeBoost have them put the pedal to the metal? But I will check. I just blanked out on Spain's game tomorrow. Obviously a big one that they need to win, because if not, they're going home early. So the Netherlands will play the other team I can't remember, but it is 2 in the morning here, and wish you a good night and happy World Cup.